Want to stretch your budget and still eat well? Well, today we're cooking up some dried beans, your wallet's new best friend and your taste bud's new BFF. Hi everyone, welcome back to the Empty Pantry. I'm Amy and I'm here to help you turn your tight budget into delicious meals. If you're looking to save a little bit of money without sacrificing flavor, you've come to the right place. Today we're diving into the world of dried beans. These little guys are packed with protein, super cheap, and best of all, they can be transformed into a variety of delicious meals. So whether you're a bean pro or a newbie, I've got some simple, budget-friendly recipes that will make dried beans a pantry staple for life. So let's soak, cook, make some magic happen, because when it comes to frugal cooking, dried beans are where it's at.
We're going to start with some bean basics. I'm going to show you how to make simple black beans on the stove from a dried bean to a finished product. Then I'm going to use the Instant Pot and show you how to make really good refried beans that you can make any day of the week. Then I'll show you how to make some homemade chili in a slow cooker that you can make either vegetarian or with meat. Cooking dried beans does take longer than pouring them out of a can, but it does save a ton of money. On average, it's 80% cheaper than buying a can of beans per serving. So let's get started with the basics. Step one is we're going to measure the beans. We're going to pour these onto a plate or a surface that you can see well, because we want to see if there's any little rocks or anything that shouldn't be in the beans. Even the cleanest beans sometimes get little rocks. The sorter just doesn't see them. Anything that looks bad or deformed, we're going to get those out of the beans before we move on. Once I feel that I have removed any bean that was questionable or odd, I'm going to put them in some water. So I have 1 cup of beans. I'm putting it in 4 cups of water. We're going to end up dumping this water out. So if you put extra water, that's no problem. But put at least 4 cups of liquid in there. And then I'm going to cover it with saran wrap and I'm going to let this sit overnight. Depending on the bean, the amount of time you need to let it sit will vary. Now that they've sat overnight, I need to drain them and rinse them. So I'm taking a strainer and just dumping the bowl into the sink to get all that extra liquid out. I'm not going to cook with this liquid. And then I'm just going to do a quick rinse to get anything extra off of there. I guess you don't have to do this. I just tend to do this because there's always that chance there's one more extra bean that shouldn't be there. I get rid of anything that looks questionable. Now we're ready to cook them. So we're going to take a big pot. We're going to put a little bit of olive oil in them because we're making black beans, about 2 tablespoons. And to the oil, I'm going to add 1 medium onion that I have diced up, fairly small. It's not big chunks. And I'm going to just saute that just a little bit. We want them to be just slightly soft and maybe a little bit translucent so you can kind of start to smell them before we go on to our next step. Now that those are looking just slightly translucent, you can see they're not totally translucent, but a little bit. I'm going to add in my rinsed beans. And to the rinsed beans, I'm going to need some liquid because obviously they're not going to finish rehydrating with just that onion. They are still quite hard and you could not eat them at this point. Now, as far as the water goes, I'm going to add 4 cups of water with 1 teaspoon of salt. You could have thrown the salt in with the beans. I don't know why I just threw it in the water this day. Add that to the beans. As they're cooking, you're going to want to check that water level to make sure that it doesn't evaporate and you don't burn your beans. Yes, I have burned my beans and they don't smell so good when they're burning. So make sure that you have plenty of water in there the entire time they're cooking. Now that I'm making black beans, I want to do a little bit of seasoning to these. So I am going to add 1 teaspoon of cumin. That's a really nice earthy flavor. I'm going to add that into my beans. I'm just going to give it a quick stir before I put the lid on it. Now, this is going to simmer for a couple of hours. Depending on the type of bean that you are making, it's going to take a different amount of time. If it's a pea, it's going to be a lot faster. If it's a kidney bean, it's going to be a lot longer. So you just need to stand by and check on it. And then after a couple of hours, take the lid off and give it a stir and just test those beans to make sure that they're nice and soft. They'll look something like this. You will have liquid in there, which is totally fine. You can store them that way so that they stay nice and hydrated and have a great flavor. Okay, let's use our Instapot for some really good refried beans. We're going to start with 1 cup of Mayacopa beans. These are a really creamy bean. Those are dried and sorted. And then I'm going to add 1 cup of pinto beans. Those are dried and sorted. 1 clove of garlic. And then we're just going to put about 6 cups of water in there before we cook it on high manual pressure for 1 hour. Let it naturally release for 1 hour before opening it. Don't peek. It needs that extra time. And then when that time is passed, they're going to look something like this. Now we need to make them look like a refried bean. So we're going to take a very large fry pan and we're going to put 8 tablespoons of either Crisco or lard, whatever you prefer. And then we're going to be very careful to scoop out our beans from the Instapot. We don't want very much liquid because that could cause a problem with the oil. We're going to put that in our frying pan until we just have liquid in our Instapot. And we're going to keep that liquid because we're going to need it in a little bit. So we're going to fry up these beans, kind of mashing them a little bit, and then eventually get out a potato masher and mash these guys down. And you just mash as much as you like to. If you like them super smooth, you're going to mash, mash, mash. If you like them a little bit chunky, then you're going to leave them a little bit chunky. I'm going to add 1 teaspoon of salt. And then they are kind of frying at this point. So now I'm going to start adding a little bit of liquid. I'm just going to add a little bit of liquid at a time until they're the consistency that I'm looking for. When I made this batch, we were going to have bean burritos and we wanted a very smooth, like a runny bean. So I ended up adding almost all of my liquid, but that is totally your preference, how thick you like them. Once you have the liquid and they're the consistency that you like, then they're ready to eat. Now, you can store these in the freezer if you make a big batch and you still have some left. The 2 cups of beans doesn't make that much of beans. I would say I probably had 5 to 6 cups of refried beans. But if you have extra, feel free to store them in the freezer. They're great reheated. And they'll look something like this when they are done, depending on how smooth or thick you wanted them. Now for the third method, I'm going to show you how to use a slow cooker. Now, a word of caution, this can take a very long time in the slow cooker because the heat is not very high, so keep that in mind. We're going to start with 28 ounces of diced tomatoes with liquid. We're just going to pour that into the slow cooker, and then we need some garlic. We're going to add 2 whole cloves of garlic. We're just going to mash that into the pot. And then, of course, we're going to need some onion. I've taken 1 large white onion and diced that fairly small, so the whole thing goes in there. I know it seems like a lot, but for chili, you really need that onion and a lot of it. Now we need some seasoning. So 1 tablespoon of chili powder, and then we're going to do 1 teaspoon each of salt, 1 teaspoon of cumin, 1 teaspoon of dried oregano, and then 1 teaspoon of cocoa powder. That just adds something to it that I always make sure I have that in there. And then we're going to add some Tabasco, and this is really preference in your part. We only like a little bit. My husband does not like spicy, but if you like spicy, add it in. And then I have 1 cup of soaked red kidney beans. These have soaked for 24 hours. The same with these white navy beans. You can use whatever kind of beans you like. It doesn't really matter. Just keep in mind, the bigger the bean, like the kidney bean, it's going to take longer. And then I added 8 cups of water. Now this is going to cook for a very long time. We're going to be on high for 12 plus hours. Right before serving, I did fry up 1 pound of ground beef to add it. That is optional. Chili doesn't officially have beef in it, but if you like beef, add the beef in there. And then here is our chili. It was very delicious and very comforting.
Today I showed you 3 very basic bean recipes. The technique in the first recipe of the black beans can be applied to any type of bean you want. It's soak overnight, cook slow on the stove until they're nice and soft. Now I know that there are so many recipes out there. If you have one, I'd love to hear about it. Leave it in the comments below. And as always, if you liked the video, please give me a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. I have lots more recipes to share with you. So until next time, remember, eating well doesn't mean you have to break the bank. Just be a little bit creative. Bye.